चलो देखिए अब इंडियन सिविलाइजेशन और कल्चर का फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन है इंडियंस ग्लोरी इज दैट इट remains is remains immovable. The charge against India is that her people are so uncivilized, ignored, and stolid. Gandhi dominated Indian politics during 1915 to 1948. The Western civilization has the tendency to privilege materiality. Indian civilization events the moral being. Machinery makes us slaves and we lose our moral fiber. Modern civilization is mainly the worship of politics. Indian civilization and culture is written by Mahatma Gandhi. Modern civilization is based on non-violence. My experiments with truth is biography. He was more a spiritual leader than a politician. Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. Which civilization is not beaten in the world? Indian. Who imagined that Europeans? Mahatma Gandhi has written the lesson. Where rulers of Egypt, pharaohs. Civilization is the state of development of a people. Gibbon is associated with Italy. European civilization will mean for India. Ruin. Simple living and high thinking is that base of Indian civilization. Indian glory is that it is immovable. Was a spiritual leader than a politician. Mahatma Gandhi. My experiment with truth was written by Mahatma Gandhi. The mind is restless. More it gets, the more it wants. Word. The people of Europe learn their lesson from the written writing of the man of Greece or Rome. Plain living and high thinking is the motto of Western philosopher. Sacrifice is the sole aim of our rights. Is dead against blind imitation civilization. Gandhiji. We are satisfied with small villages. Our ancestors has civilization taught us to be more. Another angry. Our ancestors enjoyed. The wealth and luxuries do not make a cow happy. Gandhiji went to Champaran in 1917. The people of Europe are inspired by Greek and Roman writers. Greek. The invention of probed milestone in our development. Fire. Who wrote different articles for young India. Civilization points out to man the path of duty. The observed morality is to attend mastery our minds and passions. The mind is a restless bird which always remains unsatisfied. Happiness is largely a mental condition. Mahatma Gandhi was more a spiritual leader. He used as the chief weapons truth and non-violence. Our ancestors discussed us from luxuries and pleasures. People in ancient days were satisfied with villagers. Our forefathers saw that kings and their swords were inferior to the swords of ethics. In ancient days, the common people followed agriculture. Modern civilization is the worship of material. Indian civilization and culture has been written by M.G. Gandhi. And in an ancient days, the common people enjoyed true home rule. The tendency of Indian civilization is to elevate moral being. Indian civilization is based on belief in God. Indian civilization and culture is written by Manohar Malgonkar. Gandhiji was born in 1979. Gandhiji has said that mind is a restless bird. Modern civilization is based on materialism, truth, and non-violence, where the chief weapons. The Western civilization has the tendency to privilege materiality, make us slaves, and we lose our moral fibers. Machinery. We have been copying West since long. Gandhi died in 1948. Gandhiji was more a leader than politician. Spiritual. Gandhiji dominated Indian politics during 1915 to 1958. Indian civilization has it alive. It now kept. He have many things from the West borrowed. My experiment with truth was Gandhiji's autobiography. Indian's glory is that elements moveable. Dr. Zakir Hussain entered the office the president in a spiritual of prayerful humility and total dedication. Education, according to Dr. Zakir Hussain, is the prime instrument of national purpose. According to Zakir Hussain, the value remains externally valid. The process of growth of culture and national character is the business. Education. Work on oneself means work for individual. When was Dr. Zakir Hussain born? 1897. When did Zakir Hussain died? 1969. Dr. Zakir Hussain was one of greatest freedom fighters as well as an illuminated educationist. How long did Zakir Hussain live? 72 years. Dr. Zakir Hussain said, "Bharat is my home," in the context of his presidential speech. Author of the prose piece "Bharat is my home" is Zakir Hussain. Dr. Radhakrishnan never lost his faith in the essential humanity of man. Dr. Zakir Hussain became the President of India in 1967. Earlier to becoming the President of India, Dr. Zakir Hussain served as the government of Bihar. Bharat My Home, an extract from a speech of Dr. Zakir Hussain was given by him in 1967. In his first presidential speech, Dr. Zakir Hussain pledged himself to service of the totality of Indian's culture. Dr. Zakir Hussain always championed the right of all men to live dignity and with justice. The past is alive and dynamic. The Indian culture is the best example of unity in diversity. The word erudition stands for great knowledge. When did Dr. Zakir Hussain deliver this speech? When he took oath as the president. Dr. Zakir Hussain was born in 1897. Dr. Zakir Hussain died in. Dr. Radhakrishnan explained exceptionally Indian philosophy. Dr. Zakir Hussain entered the office with total dedication. Dr. Zakir Hussain was long associated with education. The people had chosen him the head of the family for a certain time. As the president, Dr. Zakir Hussain advocated for the growth of the whole nation. Power should be used only for moral purpose. Dr. Zakir Hussain delivered his speech in 1967. Dr. Zakir Hussain took the oath as the Bharat is my home is written by Dr. Zakir Hussain. Was the role model Dr. Zakir Hussain, Dr. Radhakrishnan. Dr. Zakir Hussain took the oath of loyalty to the constitution. He said, "The Bharat is my home and it is people are my family." Dr. Zakir Hussain was great nationalist. Dr. Zakir Hussain delivered in 1967 of taking the oath of president. Is the prime instrument of nation building. Education. Brought lot of erudition and wealth of knowledge to the presidency. Dr. Radhakrishnan. Dr. Zakir Hussain feels greatly obliged obliged to the people of India. Dr. Zakir Hussain became the President of India in 1967. Dr. Zakir Hussain entered the office in a spirit of humility, prayerful. Dr. Zakir Hussain never his faith in man. Dr. Zakir Hussain has written the lesson Bharat is my home, who is the writer of the prose piece Bharat is my home. Dr. Zakir Hussain. Dr. Zakir Hussain was born in 1897. Dr. Zakir Hussain died in 1969. Dr. Zakir Hussain said Bharat is my home in the context of his presidential speech. Dr. Zakir Hussain was one of the greatest freedom fighters as well as an eminent educationist. How long did Zakir Hussain live? 72 years. Dr. Zakir Hussain entered the office of the president in a spirit of harmony and justice. In his presidential speech, Dr. Zakir Hussain pledged himself to the service of the totality of Indian culture. Bharat is my home is an extract from the speech of Dr. Zakir Hussain 1969. According to the Dr. Zakir Hussain, education is prime instrument of national purpose. The process of growth of national culture and national character is the business of education. Work on one's self means work for individual. According to Dr. Zakir Hussain, the value remains intimately valid. Early to becoming the President of India, Dr. Zakir Hussain served as the governor of Bihar. Dr. Radhakrishnan always championed the right of all men to live in dignity and justice. The narrator of A Pinch of Snuff was Probation, a secretary. When was Manohar Malgonkar born? 1913. Who was coming to visit the narrator's family? Nanku Kaka was related to the narrator as he was his nephew. Name of the son of Sohanlal Ratiram was Ratiram. Sohanlal Ratiram was the party boss in Delhi. Nanku Kaka's meeting the Sohanlal Ratiram was very successful. The second important person Nanku Kaka had planned to meet was Welfare Minister. The new role Nanku Kaka gave the narrator under secretary was of driver. Nanku Kaka managed to impress the Sikka auto dealers by demonstration of wealth, the type of situation in which a person from time to time turns to his mother tongue. Linguistic emergency. Nanku Kaka told take me to the Maharaja Sutkatta place to return the horoscope. Who is the author of the prose piece A Pinch of Snuff? Manohar Malgonkar. It was very easy for the narrator to get sent on entertainment purpose. Mother said the Nanku Kaka is coming to sing of monster. Nanku Kaka was installed in author's bedroom. The author had taken 2 days leave. Nanku Kaka in linguistic emergency always turned to his mother tongue. Nanku Kaka thought that the secretary treated them coldly because they had not gone in a bigger car. Nanku Kaka took out his check book and wrote a check for 1,000 rupees. Nanku Kaka was coming to Delhi to see some minister. Nanku Kaka was author's maternal uncle. The author has complex about ministers. Nanku Kaka traveled in the second class. On the platform, Nanku Kaka handed over the author a basket. The basket contained a cat. Nanku Kaka had third class ticket but traveled in the second class because there was no room in the third class. The author was merely an under secretary. A Pinch of Snuff is written by Manohar Gonkar. Manohar Malgonkar has written the lesson A Pinch of Snuff. Nankukaka wrote a check for refuse thousands. The second important person Nankukaka had planned to meet was the welfare minister Ratiram was the son of Sohanlal Ratiram. Is a humorous story. A pinch of snuff. There is nothing like honesty was said by Nankukaka. Was coming to visit the narrator's family. Nankukaka went to the minister in Jodhapuri court. Manohar Malgonkar, the speaker, put on his white Jodhapuri coat and the orange. Nankukaka was to stay for 2 or 3 days. Informed the under secretary about Nankukaka's visit. Mother Nankukaka was related to the narrator as he was his mother's brother. Is the main character of a story Pinch of Snuff. Nankukaka has a unique quality of telling lies. Nankukaka handed over a check of thousands rupees to a Dhobi. Nankukaka portrayed himself as the hereditary astrologer of the Maharaja of Ninor. Nankukaka was a very man, clever. A pinch of snuff is a short story. A pinch of snuff is a fact, a detailed character sketch of Nankukaka. Manohar Malgonkar was the on probation. Under Secretary Sohanlal Ratiram was the party boss in Delhi. Nankukaka meeting with the Sohanlal Ratiram was very successful. Who is the author of the prose piece A Pinch of Snuff? Nanpal. The second important person Nankukaka had planned to meet was welfare minister. The type of situation in which a person from time to time turns to his mother tongue linguistic emergency. It was very easy for the narrator to get sent on foreign assignment. Mother said that Nankukaka is coming to see some minister. The narrator of A Pinch of Snuff was a provision and under secretary. Nankukaka was related to the narrator as he was his Kabiram. Name of the son of Sohanlal Ratiram was Ratiram. The new kitten had just made a on the floor pedal. Nankukaka was the narrator's maternal uncle. Pen was Manohar Lal Malgonkar, born 1930. The new role Nankukaka gave the narrator under secretary was of driver. Nankukaka managed to impress the Sikka auto dealers by demonstration of wealth. Nankukaka told, "Take me to the Maharaja's Sutkata place to return the horoscope." Nankukaka went to see the minister in a private car. Nankukaka wrote a check for a rupees thousands. Nankukaka's snuff box was of silver. Martin Luther King's Jr. was assassinated on April 4, 1968. When did Martin Luther King's Jr. deliver his speech Have a Dream on August 28, 1963. Through his speech, the author supports the struggle of the Negroes. America becomes a great nation. It must not overlook the problems of Negroes. The pledge is to always go ahead on the path of freedom. This pledge will be fulfilled only when the rights were given to Negroes. Who is the author of the prose piece I Have a Dream? Martin Luther King's Jr. was born in 1929. Martin Luther King's Jr. died in 1968. What was Martin Luther King's Jr. before becoming a civil rights activist? Baptist minister. Martin Luther King's Jr. was influenced by which Indian leader? Gandhiji. The slum or densely populated by associated community is ghetto. King is regarded as one of the greatest orators. The author advocates non-violence struggle. Martin Luther King Jr. was born in 1929. Martin Luther King Jr. was associated on April 4. King was assassinated in 1968. Have a Dream is a speech delivered by King on August 28, 1968. American gave the Negro people a bad check by the singing of the Emancipation Proclamation. On the hopes of the Negro population remained unfulfilled. To overlook the Negro would he fatal. The Negroes made the pledge that they will always march ahead. How many times King repeats that we cannot be satisfied? 5 times. The word momentous stands for very important. They had dreamed that one day they would get their rights. Racial discrimination is against human rights. I Have a Dream is written by Martin Luther King Jr. Martin Luther King Jr. has written the lessons. I Have a Dream. I Have a Dream is a part of a speech delivered by Martin Luther King Jr. Martin Luther King Jr. belongs to the USA. The condition of the appalling Negroes is a sweltering ring with the heat of injustice and oppression. Mississippi was a great orator. Martin Luther King Jr. Martin Luther King Jr. was a Negro. Nobel Prize for Peace was given to Martin Luther King Jr. in 1964. Negroes are the former of America. Slaves. Is the United States of the USA. Mississippi. Martin Luther King Jr. had children. 4. Advocate non-violent struggle. Martin Luther King Jr. Martin Luther King Jr. loves the white American. Martin Luther King Jr. was a civil rights activist. Martin Luther King Jr. delivered his speech in Washington, D.C. on August 28, 1963. Martin Luther King Jr. dislikes discrimination. Racial. I Have Dream is a speech delivered by Martin Luther King Jr. The Bank of Justice is a bankrupt. Has given the Nikon view head check which has come back and marked. Has given the Negro people a bad check which has come back marked insufficient fund. America. Who is the author of the prose piece I Have Dream? Martin Luther King Jr. The hope is that every valley should be exalted. Dream. In which year Martin Luther King Jr. became the youngest person to receive the Nobel Prize? 1964. It would be fatal for the native to overlook the serious and urgent call of the moment. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated on April 4, 1968. Martin Luther King Jr. was influenced by which Indian leader? Gandhiji. Who was Martin Luther King Jr. born 1929? What was Martin Luther King Jr. before becoming a civil rights activist? Baptist minister. When did Martin Luther King Jr. die? 1968. When did Martin Luther King Jr. deliver his speech I Have a Dream? On August 28, 1963. If America become a great nation, it must overlook the problem of Negroes. This place will fulfilled only when the fights were given to Negroes. Through his speech, the author supports the struggle of the Negroes. The pledge is to always go ahead on the path of freedom. The world development is related to man. For Homo sapiens, survival was problem. Long infancy was a biological advantage to mankind. Utilization of what thing become a milestone in human progress. Fire. The word pictorial was related to early man with writing, who propagated in course of time. Humans what taught us to be more friendly towards one another. Civilization ideas pay the way of for development. The two broad categories of ideas that have helped mankind: knowledge and technique. Who is the author of the prose piece idea that have helped mankind? Britannica Russells. When Burton, but Bertrand Russell born 1872. When did Russell die? 1977. Bertrand Russell belonged to Britain. When was Bertrand Russell awarded with the Nobel Prize? In 1950. We are able to get variety of enjoyment due to our intelligence. We are more friendly within the world. After language, the second most important thing which helped mankind was fire. The taming of domestic animals made life please pleasanter. Ideas that have helped mankind has been written by Bertrand Russell. Bertrand Russell died in 1970. Russell was awarded Nobel Prize for Literature, the most indubitable respect in which ideas have helped mankind. Numbers. Survival of for Homo sapiens primarily was a problem. Birds die of hunger in large numbers during winter. During summer, birds forget his catastrophe. Every human death by starvation is preceded by a long period of anxiety. Human beings suffer more due to their intelligence. Animals get pleasure from none. Bertrand Russell has written the lessons idea that have helped mankind. Bertrand Russell was a philosopher and a historian and mathematician. The invention of was more important than domestication of animals. Agriculture civilization taught us to be more friendly towards others. Was also a commentator on large variety of topics. Bertrand Russell in the last step was never taken. China would not help the corn to grow unless he was allowed to feast on the blood of children. Moloch, who is the author of the prose piece ideas that have helped mankind. Bertrand Russell for Homo sapiens survival was very easy, who progressed in the course of time. Humans idea gave the way for development. The two broad categories of ideas that have helped mankind concern humanity, utilization of what thing they became milestone in human progress. Fire. The word pictorial was related to early man with writing, what taught us to be more friendly towards one another. Civilization when was Bertrand Russell's awarded with the Nobel Prize in 1915. Bertrand Russell belonged to Britain. Long infancy was biological advantage to mankind. When was Bertrand Russell born? 1872. When did Russell dies? 1970. The word development is related to man. Who was written the prose piece? The artist. Siga Noya, who is the main character of this artist. Sebi. Sebi was interested in gods passionately. What a splendid god, thought Sebi, but actually it was old man's. After realizing the mistake, what did Sebi do all the way home? Laughed. How old was Sebi? 12 years. 13 years after classes, what would Sebi usually do? Wandered in town looking for gods. At the agriculture show last spring, which type of god was displayed? Vakin. The old man passed a stall of fruits. How much the Curiodils had to pay for the god in the end? 50, 50 yen. When was Siga Noya born? 1883. When did Siga Noya die? 1971. Sebi often went out the by himself. Gods. Sebi lived in Harbortown. What would Sebi apply to get rid of the unpleasant god smell? Tea leaves. Which type of god did Sebi like? Even and symmetrical. The teacher who caught Sebi doing with God in the class punished him. The teacher made complaint against Sebi to his mother. The artist is a short story. Who has written the story? S. Noya. Siga Noya was born in 1883. Siga Noya died in. He was celebrated Japanese short story writer. Sebi was an artist. Sebi parents knew that he often bought himself gods. Sebi lived in a harbor town. One could walk from one end of the town to another in 20 minutes. Sebi knew every place that sold gods. One day Sebi found a peculiar god at the shop of an old woman. 10 sen. He used to bore a neat hole in the top of the god. He made the hole to extract seeds. Whenever Sebi passed through the market, he searched for the gods. Siga Noya has written the story. The artist Sebi was 12 years old. Boy. Japanese Sebi was Japanese boy 12 years old. Sebi's hobby was collecting of gods. Sebi was passionately interested in gods. Siga Noya is a writer. Japanese. One day Sebi was caught and handed by his teacher ethics. Sebi bought inch god from old woman. 5. The teacher become very bitch with Sebi for neglecting. Angry. Sebi reads at school primary. Sebi got gods for few sen. One must admire the inherent qualities in the children. The price of 5 inches gods is 10 cents. Sebi father worked at the shop. Carpenters selling dried persimmons and orange. And old woman, the potter, sold the god of Sebi for 15 years. Is a short story. The artist Sebi hobby of collecting gods made his teachers displeased. Sebi's parents who that we often went out by himself. Gods. The curio dealers sold the god to build the collector for N 600. Sebi often went out to buy himself gods. What would Sebi apply to get rid of unpleasant god smell? Tea leaves. Which type of god did Sebi like? Even and Symmetrica, who has written the prose piece of artist Siga Noya. When was Siga Noya born? 1883. When did Siga Noya die? 1971. Who is the main character of the artist Sebi? After realizing the mistake, what did Sebi do all the way of home? Loved after classes. What would Sebi usually do, wandered in town looking for gods. Sebi was interested in gods passionately. What a splendid god through Sebi, but actually it was old man's bald head. How much the curio dealer and had to pay for the god in thinned 50 yen at the agricultural show last spring. Which type of gods was displayed back in? How old was Sebi? 12 years. The old man passed a stall of fruits.